Yeah, they said the creek was quiet until I showed up with the flash. Now it bubbles like a cauldron full of chaos and sass. Flip the switch, boom, spores light the night. I'm that mad mycologist, cooking dynamite. Roll up in the lab coat, looking like a villain. Petri dish, pimping every strain I'm killing. Got that mycelium feeling spreading in the ceiling. Dr. Salary and Sermon got the culture kneeling. Moon pearl shimmer while the flask gets hot. MCM, baby, we the cream of the crop. I mix oats and sawdust, make that block ignite. Fun guy fireworks, call it Friday night. I'm a spore bomb lighting up the scene. Grow bags popping like a fever dream. Got jars on the table, culture's clean. Dr. Silurian cooking up that green. Mossy Creek, that's dynamite. Spreading spores till the stars take flight. Call the lab, tell them brace for blight. Cause I'm blowing up the world with my mycelial might.
Hello, haha. I'm getting the mute stuff down. What's going on with everybody? I hope everyone is having a good day before Thanksgiving. As you all know, I normally do this on Thursdays, but tomorrow is Thanksgiving, so I'm doing it today. It's going to be chill, hopefully easy. Hopefully you guys have a lot of questions for me, so I don't have to think too hard. Today has been an accounting day. Samantha and I have been working on closing out some of the end of year accounting stuff. Some of you may have even gotten phone calls from me today. I've been going through a whole stack of back orders to work through, so you hear me. And that's excellent. I'm going to roll a little cigar because a little cigarillo, because I have earned it today. And that means I get to have it. What's up, nerd? And Steve, what's going on with you? So he says, driving a truck right now, so I'll catch up with the replay. 8:33 a.m. Dang. Well, I am, if nothing else, American. And on that Eastern Standard Time. But yeah, man, it'll be around for replay. Excuse me. So, yeah, so we had our class this past Saturday. It went really, really well. I was super stoked about that. I was actually really nervous. And turned out I didn't need to be nervous. I get nervous every time I do public speaking and stuff still. My dad says that he was a professional musician for years until he just retired recently, and he was telling me that he even felt nervous. Like he even felt nervous. He felt nervous to the day he stopped playing music. Like even when he gets up and still plays for the church, he says he still gets nervous sometimes. So that may never go away. But I did really enjoy the class once I got rolling. I don't know. I guess I just had this like, it's got to be a big thing. And really, nobody asked me anything I didn't really know. Which, I mean, hopefully being at this for, how long have we been at this? 15 years? Something like that, 15 years. So hopefully I've gotten to where I at least know most questions most people will ask. So good afternoon, Andrew. It's 81 and breezy and beautiful paradise. Dang. 81. 81's too hot. 81's way too hot. Give it to me about 65. 65, maybe 70. 70 swimming weather. I mean, it sounds gorgeous, though. Just the paradise makes it a little more tolerable than just the 81 degrees. 81 degrees there is probably very different than 81 degrees here, too, though. Hey, welcome. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And Jeff, yeah, man, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was great fun to do it. I'm really looking forward to the liquid culture deep dive. I started doing some work for that today. Not a lot. I got more of that I'm going to be doing throughout this week. And I've got a ready to fruit block order I've got to have ready for December 4th. And I was hoping to go deer hunting today, but that thing needs some cleaning. So I did not go deer hunting today or the other day that I was supposed to go. So hopefully tomorrow after the family dinners, I'll have some time to clean it up because I have not been deer hunting in pretty much since I started mushrooms. So it's probably been it's been at least since 2013 since I've gone deer hunting, and I have a gentleman named Mr. Denise who is a hunter extraordinaire. So offering to take me, which means, in fact, I sent him. He said, "Wish you were here the other day on Saturday when I was teaching the class. That was the opening of deer season." And he said, "Wish you were here." And I said, "Yeah, me too." I said, "Have any luck?" And he went, I think he said, like, "No, not really. Just these two or something like that." And he's got a picture of him like laying back with a couple of deer. I was like, dang it. He's like, could have had two more, but there was nobody else there with tags. So I had to rub it in a little. Rub it in, rub it in. Yeah, it's we'll see if I get to go this year or not. I'm more interested in the fishing than I am hunting. I'm not much of a hunter. Never did really get into. I don't like the. It's not the being out in the woods that bothers me, or the shooting the deer that really bothers me. Though I actually do shake pretty bad right before I pull the trigger. That stopped at some point with like rabbit and stuff, but the butchering I never did really enjoy the butchering part. So the meat part though, I enjoy the freezer full of meat. But I'll stock the freezer full of catfish or something too. I'm a big catfish eater. Nobody's got any questions? Dang. I'm not well, that's my everybody's preparing for Thanksgiving. Yeah. There we go. Couple popped up there. Is there any truth regarding some big mushroom companies irradiating the mushrooms to prevent people from cloning them? I've cloned several from the store before with mostly success. Just curious. I've not seen anything about that, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I could totally see some big companies doing that, but at the same time, I don't. Even Monterey's, which is the biggest mushroom company around here, and I mean, I know they're out in California. I think the plant close to here produces like 600,000 pounds a week. I don't think they do anything like that. I've cloned their mushrooms before just to see if I could. Didn't really even try to grow them. I don't have a lot of interest in trying to grow portobello. For one thing, why compete with the big boys that are doing it so well? And then number two, I don't want to handle manure. I love the products of animal agriculture, but I would much rather grow mushrooms, like forest dwelling mushrooms and peppers and tomatoes and melons and things like that, and trade all of that stuff for the animal products, which is typically how I get a lot of our meat outside of just like chicken and stuff. Even then, we get eggs. I get so many eggs, guys, from trading my burst bags. I just put them on Facebook Marketplace when they burst through the autoclave. And it's like, well, instead of running it again and instead of just throwing it away as compost, which is still not a waste, why not put these sterilized oats on Facebook Marketplace and get people to bring me eggs in exchange for these oats? So, anyways, that whole thing. Do what? Oh, for the tape gun? Noise cancellation will probably get most of it, unless I'm talking. No, it's getting it. It's totally getting it. Samantha's putting together some packages. I'm not sorry. You work all you want. I actually like the work going on in the background. I feel like it adds authenticity to my streams. I just wish I'd got on the stream when Brody was still running Thor out there, because then you guys could have heard the compressor going off. But anyways, yeah, Steve, I don't know anything about the veracity of that statement. That would be an interesting kind of deep dive to get into. Andy Green, hey Andrew. Well, hey Andrew. Hey Andy. Hey Andy. Just wanted to say thanks again for a Saturday online course. It was brilliant. Thank you, man, so much. I appreciate that. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking so forward to the liquid culture deep dive. I'm going to be doing another basics course, I think in January, like early mid-January. I think it's something I've talked about. We're probably going to do that every couple of months. We'll do the basics, so that way there's always an opportunity for people. So, and then we've also I'm doing a twofer right now, where I'm going to do a cordyceps class and I'm doing a liquid culture class. And for cordyceps, you need a lot of liquid culture. So as part of our deep dive, we're going to produce a ton of cordyceps liquid culture for the liquid culture class. And then we're going to turn around. Oh, I need to get that air pump in too, because my air pump just died. So my aerated liquid culture setup is not going to be good if I don't get that. Shame. Do what? Being lazy. Spana says she's having a moment with email commentary. Yeah, it was like one person. We've had like so many good stuffs. Samantha's going through that phase, I think, right now that I went through a few months ago, where it was like everything's negative, and it's like no, it's like one or two people. But yeah, so we're gonna do the cordyceps. I'm like trying to do the cordyceps as part of the liquid culture production, but then that'll go into the cordyceps bags, and we'll be able to film some of that and the whole thing. So, how come you decided to make extracts with fruit bodies instead of using mycelium in your extracts? It just seems like the folklore use is mostly what we have to go on as far as extracts go. As far as the health benefits of mushrooms, there's very little in the world on alcohol extracts. There's very little science on extracts to begin with, and the effects of extracts. And then most extracts that we've ever had are what's called a decoction. Decoction in herbalism terms is like you take something, you boil it, you kind of boil it down a little bit, and then you drink it. And most of the time, that is how people have consumed mushrooms. So for the thousands of years of known medicinal usage of mushrooms, it's usually been boil mushrooms, drink tea or decoction, followed by maybe eat the mushrooms, maybe not, depending on what it is. So to me, when you're sitting there looking at the Chilton and Stamets debate between mycelium and fruit bodies make the most sense to me. And they make the most sense from both of their arguments, but also from a dilution. Like, I don't like the idea of the grain spawn. If I was going to do it, I would want to do it liquid culture style, and then pull the liquid culture off and just have pure mycelium that you're extracting. But even then, I don't think that it's going to be found in that much. I mean, I'd like to see some better testing and stuff on it. I just think that the fruit bodies, it's what makes sense. Even alcohol extracts, I add alcohol to mine as a preservative, but I don't really care about the alcohol extraction part. In fact, I need to get that out of like to me, it's more of a preservative than it is an actual extraction tool. What's up, Zero Bytes? Thanks for doing these. I look forward to them every week. Absolutely. Well, I'm glad that you do. I usually look forward to them, and sometimes I'm tired. And sometimes I'm tired, and I look forward to them. But like I said, I earned the cigar today, so. And look, before everybody starts talking about how it's weed, it is dark. It is pipe tobacco. It is pipe tobacco. Both sides, pipe tobacco. It is dark. I'm going to get comments. With the commentary. Yeah, I mean, whatever. It's not like people who are saying, oh, man, it's weed, that they think that it's bad or something. But. All right, so Hold on. Don't choose violence. Choose being constructive. Got to turn my carbon filter on there, or this place would reek. Even pipe tobacco. Samantha doesn't mind the pipe tobacco smell, but she hates the cigar, but she hates the stale pipe tobacco smell. The stuff I smoke has got a vanilla kind of. And I don't smoke very often. Usually at night if I'm going to at all. But have you tried to cultivate morels? Why is it so complicated? Primarily because it requires a plant partnership to produce reliably. Morels is a big family. So there's Burns morels and there's grays and blondes and there's I don't remember how many species of morels, but they end up being there's a couple of types that can be grown without plant partners, and then the rest of them mostly need plant partners. And so that's why they're difficult, is because it's hard to replace that plant partnership. Now, I think that there's a way to do it. You can probably just figure out, like, you can probably grow them hydroponically and then find out whatever hormones or whatever they need to be bathed in for that seasonal thing. But I mean, that's why plants. I was about to say plants are far more complicated than fungi, but that's not really true. The cultivation of plants has advanced to the point where we can grow much more finicky organisms, because there are plants that are super easy to grow. And mushrooms, I think we're in the early stages of growing the easy to grow ones. And there are, once it advances, in China, you're seeing them grow tremellas and umbrella polypores, I think, which take 2 years to grow, all kinds of stuff. So it'll get more complicated, and morels, I think, will be figured out, because morels are super desirable. But it's just going to take some time, and it's just a finicky. It's a thing that requires a more complex relationship to get going. Most of what we're working with is white rot fungi, and they have a really kind of a, I'm going to say, simplistic lifestyle, but it's not true, because the white rot fungi is a huge family. But you know what I mean, I think. Also, I love catfish. Not available where I live, but I had a big one. Had a big grilled one in Thailand, and it's delicious. The skin tastes like chicken skin. I like catfish, and I like the catfish skin a lot of times. I don't remember where you're at exactly. Was it Belgium? I thought they had like Wells catfish and stuff where you're at. A lot of, I mean, you can get catfish farmed here, and it's fantastic. But like Mr. Denise and I are talking, we'll go at certain times of the year and catch catfish, and you're catching gigantic fish. I mean, like 70-pound catfish out of the lakes here. I'm in the UK. I've been trying to buy maltose as you recommended, but I'm finding it difficult to source. Is there anything else you'd recommend? Malt extract. Try finding malt extract. That'll be maltose. Typically, if you're ordering it as maltose, it'll probably end up being a scientific source. If you just buy malt, I know you guys have malt, because you guys make malt beers and stuff there, right? Like, you got to. Like, ales and things like that are from malt. So you can just buy brewing sugars legitimately. I like dark malt as much as possible, or actually I like amber malts more than anything. But yeah, just buy a malt extract. Dried is better than wet if you can get it. That is what is confusing me. I agree with you. As far as the fruit bodies, yeah, I mean, that's the best that I can figure. That said, I could very well be wrong. Maybe the mycelium absolutely is the way to go. I just don't see the historical use on that. Now, granted, the historical use, the folkloric use, or the folk pathway use, would be primarily because mycelium and growing mycelium was a little understood thing, right? They weren't growing it in grain spawn and things like that. They might do mother patches or something, but the fruit bodies is what they found. Everything else was kind of hidden. Maltose is just malt. You take a grain, you germinate it, and right when it's at a certain stage, it's called saccharification. You want to saccharify those grains, the beans turning the starches into sugars. You then quick dry it. And it's not saying that Asia didn't have malt processes, because they absolutely did. But you see a kind of a division where in Europe they went largely malts to saccharify grains into sugar. And in Asia, you see a large use of koji, a mold that is grown on rice to saccharify rice into the starch and rice into sugars. And it's pretty neat how that works. Sorry about that. Muting my phone. The so all malt is just grain that's been sprouted, grown to a certain point, and then heat dried, quick dried. Middle Earth Chronicles said, "Hi Sam, that's Kim." Pretty sure that's Kim. Actually, no, that may not be Kim. Middle Earth Chronicles. Would that be Kim? There's so many Middle Earth names. Is that Kim? Hmm? Getting a little overwhelmed. I agree with you regarding the fruit body versus mycelium debate. However, I remember reading about some shiitake extracts made with huge vats of LC and then being sprayed onto trays and dried. I mean, I think it's a great way to go. If you're going, it is Kim. Okay.
I will not remember your username.
She said she will not remember your username,
I will remember you.
but she'll remember you. I've got something to remember Kim by. Look at that tattoo Kim gave me. But anyways, as far as the LC extracts goes, I mean, that's the way I would do it. If I was going to make extracts from mycelium, I would want that to be probably a rinsed liquid culture. Maybe not even rinsed. I mean, sometimes I don't know if you would want the metabolites in there, but I do feel like rinsed would probably be better if you're just trying to get the stuff from the inside. If you're after metabolites, now you would need to have really another thing about the grain or the fruit bodies that I like is that it's a lot easier to keep a quality product. Whereas with the mycelium, you're going to have really good quality control practices. And my thought is that it's probably why it's pushed by some of these larger guys is because it keeps the smaller guys out of the game. And the fruit bodies allows anyone who can purchase mushrooms to make mushroom extracts. So, see what I mean by there? Substrate. Once hydrated, how long can you let sit before pasteurizing? After cooking, how long would you let them sit? So, once I hydrate it, if you stick it in the fridge, it can stay in there for a couple of weeks. If you got a walk-in or something like that. So we used to do that to keep our production schedule. Let's say the autoclave had to be rerun or it didn't run a full process and we just ran it again. Then we would make blocks and stick them in the walk-in. And that way they could stay good for a longer period of time. If you're just doing a few, you can do them in the fridge. Leaving them out, that's going to depend on how warm it is. Because however warm it is how fast things will ferment. And you're not really worried about the organisms fermenting your sub so much, except that they're converting that food into biomass. And in the process of doing so, they're producing metabolites that they leave behind. And those metabolites can have fungal inhibitors and a bunch of other stuff. So, as long as they're not going moldy and yeasty, that's probably pretty good. And that's going to be a case-by-case basis. There's not like a clean answer there other than just they start getting stinky, then they're going bacterial. For me, overnight, and they are hot, 110 degrees. You're like hydrating with hot water, and then they stay 110. you're probably doing a light kind of pasteurization right there. But definitely screw mycelium grain extracts. I mean, I don't know about screw it. I have my opinions on it, but again, we'll see if time will tell if I'm right or if I'm wrong. Give Teddy and the Heathen some love for me. I absolutely will. Wherever they are, I will here in a little bit, whenever I can find them. Thanks. I was looking at the scientific maltose. It's 140 a kilo. Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Just go with the malt extract. Light malt extract works fine, but I prefer the dark, or amber is my absolute favorite because it's just the way it looks in the jar. But hello from KCMO, Kansas City, Missouri, right? Well, hello from East Tennessee. Let's see, somebody was asking about something, and I was going to pull it up, and I forgot. Let me look back on the chat. I'm not finding it yet, but speaking of, I do need to make a little advertisement here. I'm about to move the basics course to a January, so I've got to make that in the next, probably be Friday before I can do that. But we have the liquid culture deep dive, and of course, anyone who took the class can contact me for 30% off coupon code for the liquid culture deep dive. That it's on December 13th. So we got the 29th and then the 6th. So 1, 2, in a couple of weeks. Is that really only a couple of weeks away? Oh, it does not. It feels like it's I guess that's right though. I had it 3 weeks away, so we're a couple of weeks out from that class. For anybody that is interested. Also, through December, I'm going to be making some changes to the way we operate. So I'll go over that real quick. We're going to be doing one of the things we're wanting to do is I'm noticing that there is not really much in the way of like Hericium expertise out there. I have it, so I've been working with Hericium a long time. I have one of the largest private libraries that I know of Hericium cultures. In fact, I was going through it today, and I was like, oh man, I need to really list this because I'd forgotten about several cultures I had in long-term storage. So we're probably going to be, or not probably, we are moving into going to be releasing a lot of Hericium strains over the next little while, and re-releasing strains that we had out before, like Sabertooth and Mammoth Tusk, which are not currently on the website, or if they are, they're kind of hidden and not, they probably don't have photos and things like that on them. So we're going to be doing a lot more lion's mane, and we're going to have a lot of those cultures for sale. We're still going to have our oyster strains and release those in liquid culture, but we'll be doing a big focus on Hericium for the next while. I also want to release some videos on Hericium, some of the science behind it. There's some really interesting things going on in the taxonomic situation where there's a lot of things that we thought were lion's mane that are not lion's mane, and a lot of things that we thought were not lion's mane that are lion's mane. We're not still really clear, though it's getting clearer thanks to a lot of the biodiversity projects and stuff, the DNA that they're doing. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to help contribute to a lot to that, because I'd like to send off like my entire Hericium library to someone to get the DNA testing done, or honestly just get my DNA testing lab going up. Actually, I should do that. I should just do that, and then once I have that section of the lab running, I should just run a class on it so that people can do that. Well, yeah, we'll definitely have them. I've got a lot of really cool ones. A lot of people don't realize just how diverse the forms of Hericium can be. Like they're really, thankfully it's starting to be a little bit more popular, like comb tooth varieties and stuff. But it's going to be crazy. Do a Hericium master pack? I absolutely will. We used to do a Hericium bulk pack, and that is one of the ones I'm about to throw up on the website. Our old Hericium bulk pack that we used to do. Yeah, I miss doing the bulk packs, so I need to. I'll probably be spending part of Friday getting a bunch of those bulk packs on the website, and I've got so many people sending me wild sables. By the way, Kim, you should totally make cardboard spawn out of that one Hericium that was too far gone if you didn't already leave it. But you might be able to get to the center of that one with some tweezers like we talked about. Bought a huge lion's mane the other day from the store and cloned it on several plates. Cooked it with butter and garlic on a whim. Took a piece of garlic, sanitized it, and put it on a plate with lion's mane. What are you hoping to do with that, Steve? That's what I was wondering. Is it are you using garlic as an antibacterial, or are you wanting to make it to where it can grow on garlic? Do what? Well, that's what I'm wondering. Think about this. Like lion's mane infused garlic. Could you grow? Right. Yeah. Could you grow it across and then cook with it? And would that change the flavor considerably? Also, would it even grow on the garlic because of the antifungals in the garlic? I think it would. I think the white rot, if you sterilize it and you give it a ton of time, yeah, who thinks it would work? I think it would work. Yeah, I don't have no time for another experiment like that. But you what? What's going on? You're leaving? All right. Love you. Have fun with your lady friend. He did. He doesn't want these. Hey, nice sweatshirt. Love you. Do what? No, you can steal it from me. Though, will you come here and show it? You don't even have to show your face. Just show your back. Yeah, look at that. He's got the sweater with the monogram on it. All right, have fun. Yep, Samantha did do that design. Oh, and that. So she made the sweater and the boy that is that's inside the sweater. Out of your Hericiums, what's your favorite to eat? Probably comb tooth, but not just any comb tooth. Not the really frail ones, but the comb tooth we used to sell that I actually just pulled out of cold storage today. It was one of the cultures I'd kind of forgotten about. It is like when you consider a lot of Hericium as like the artificial crab cakes, this one was the one I always like considered the lobster of the mushroom world. It is absolutely beautiful. Conifer coral is a Hericium, but coral, there is a type of mushroom called corals, and they are not Hericium. But there's a conifer coral, and there are certain I have a couple of strains that I haven't released yet that have coral in the name because they have how much they look like coral. Hey, Teddy, that's enough, man. He thinks he's going. I think with Samantha and Brody, but there's a Hericium strain I have called the Hamlin Beach. It's from Hamlin Beach, New York. That is, hey, that's enough. It's got a texture kind of like the coral mushrooms do, where they're like softer. You cook them, and then they're like, it's kind of like they get a crunch to it. Kind of like it's got like a bite to it. I don't know how to explain it. Hey, hush, Teddy. Teddy, that's enough. But yeah, as far as like the regular corals, they are not Hericiums. You're talking about the paper, that is one of the papers. It's not the only one. There's some others out there, but you're going with them. I love you too, baby. But that is definitely one of them. There's some other studies out there as well. There's some really interesting. So digging deep into the biology of hericiums and how they work. They're for white rots. They're very strange compared to a lot of what we're used to. For instance, one of the things that they found was they went out and did some blind prospecting, and they found that hericium is not nearly so uncommon as they thought. It's just far more common to find it. Love you, bud. It's just far more common to find it in its monokaryotic state, which means that it's only half an organism. And that there was another study done where they showed that the monokaryon form of hericium is more aggressive, does better with contaminations, and is faster and all that kind of stuff than in its monokaryotic state than it is its dikaryotic state. And they did that with domestic and wild strains. Though, talking about domestic strains, there are very few selectively bred hericium lineages out there. Very few people have gotten into hericium breeding. Those who have typically just breed a mushroom to itself. Yeah, it's gonna be really, really interesting. So I'm gonna give it a go. Just not holding my breath. Absolutely. Anytime you bioprospect from the wild, it's a crapshoot. It is absolutely a crapshoot. Like it's there are things that you can do to make it easier than others, and I need to stop scratching that, especially when you're watching. But you're dealing with contaminations. You're dealing with different stages of growth. You're dealing with different hormonal mixes, all that kind of stuff. So anytime you have to resort to something like you're taking something less good and having to resort to like cardboard spawn and that kind of thing out of it, it's never really the best way to go. I did just do some reishi with this last mentorship that we had last week, where he brought a reishi in, and we're attempting to do some cardboard spawn because it was pretty moldy by the time he'd gotten it to me. You get caught up on the hericium? Well, yes, I do. Yes, I do. I need to get caught up on all my Patreon stuff. I'm behind again on my Patreon. But that's something we're working on through early December. That's actually why I was waking up a few strains from cold storage, because there's some really cool things that I think you guys will like that I want to pull out. So, how many cultures are in the Basics online pack? There's 5 of them in the Basics. And again, if you have requests, send me an email. I can't promise any requests will be met exactly, but I can do my best. Hey, don't you even think about it. Just wanted to see what it would do. Heard about antibacterial props with garlic. Yeah, so that's interesting. It would be super cool to see how it does. Like, again, I think it would be really cool. Okay, if you tried to like literally infuse garlic with different mushrooms. If you're on Facebook, you can go to the mushroom growing group. It's pretty much unusable now. I feel like there's just so many people in it. But it's a great archive still, and you can use the search function. Look up Sydney Ober Singleton. The way you spell his name, I'm going to put that in the chat. Sydney Ober Singleton. And then look up Morel Tempa in that. And the homokaryons are more combative. Probably. I don't know exactly that's the one, but that's probably it. But yeah, if you look up Morel Tempa and Sydney's name, you should find some really cool stuff. But he was literally taking Morel mycelium and growing that across soybeans and making a kind of a tempa with it. And then you'd slice that up and you could fry those little cakes. I tried doing it with the oysters. It did not work out well with the oysters. They just smelled like and tasted like burnt hair. But Morels are probably a little different. And he probably has some advice on how to get it to grow well on there, on his post. But if you did that, like with garlic, I think that would be super cool. How is it that Hericium likes to grow better on pine wood instead of hardwood? Well, that's not necessarily true. It's pine pellets. And a lot of things grow on pine pellets. Oysters are heavy feeders. So I think there's just not enough oomph in pine to support really good flushes, but oysters will grow faster. But Hericium is one of those mushrooms that, like, it'll just keep producing a lot of times. Like, once it starts producing, it'll just keep putting out flushes. And until you're going, man, how in the world are you producing? You've produced more fresh mushroom than total weight of the block. How is that possible? You know, like, it'll leave you kind of just going, what in the world? And the pine pellets, when during the pelletization process, a lot of that resinous material that the mushrooms wouldn't like is actually squeezed out through the pelletizing process. So it's just a softer wood is what it comes down to. I'm moving to a new place. Down. I'm planning on setting up a 10 by 10 tent for Hericiums and my other special mushrooms. Lots of genetics I need more room for. Outdoor stuff too. Hey, that's cool, man. I just got a whole load of logs delivered yesterday of white oak that I need to go out there and chainsaw up in the next couple of days and then bring out here and inoculate. I'm doing shiitake and Hericium and probably some oyster logs as well. But I'm going to do some outdoor grows out here in the parking lot, put some shade cloths up and a sprinkler system. And, have a whole outdoor grow, probably more shiitake than anything. But I want to do some wild Hericiums. And this is Ed Grand. Oh, hey, Ed. James Steen. Because your other accounts got taken down. Gotcha. Glad to see you're on here, man. Yeah. Kim's chiding me for scratching my tattoo. I'm trying not to scratch it. It's at the itchy phase. Is this the paper you referred to? Okay, yeah, the homokaryons are more competitive than heterokaryons. I believe that is the case. And again, so it's because it's about coralloides, which I think, is it coralloides a defunct species now? Like, it's no longer considered, there's no longer a coralloides species, or did they? I don't really remember that. I'm going to have to look that up again because there was a lot of talk about that, about how they were making that. I know who Sydney is. Thanks for the tip. I'll keep you posted on the garlic lion's mane plate. Please do. I would be very, very interested in that because a lot of times if you will sterilize a substrate and then put white rot fungi to it, they will absolutely adapt to it over time. It just takes a long time to. The only wholesaler in my country uses scissors lifts to work in 4-story heights, mostly portobellos, but also shiitake, lion's mane, and oki. The base logic being that warehouses are tall, and when renting, you only pay per square foot of floor space you use. So going vertical saves a lot of money on rent. So what your thoughts are on doing this small scale, maybe 10 to 12 foot? I mean, if you've got the infrastructure to do it safely, then do it. I don't think that a ladder is going to be a problem necessarily. It's just whether or not you can do it safely. And again, I don't know your whole situation, and you are in a mushroom centric part of the world, so that you are going to have those bigger guys. But the here we have a lot more space, so square footage is actually not that hard. And in fact, in America, while residential rents have skyrocketed, commercial space has plummeted. So there's a lot of that going on where people are getting warehouses and then putting in like apartments and stuff like that, just to save some money. But square footage is not hard to come by here in the States, so I don't really have a lot of experience. We went vertical, but only so much as it was comfortable for me to reach up and just grab stuff. So, yo, Ed. What's up, Mike? Hey, Andrew, Saturday class was great. Thank you so much. Man, I love that everybody, like, it just worked out so well. That class was killer. Saturday class was great. Any more details on LC Deep Dive Class 13th? I'll have an email coming out probably Friday or Monday. I'm not sure what day, with the link and, or maybe not the link, but at least the information on it. I got to make sure I've got some infrastructure in place as well. But I don't have any more information on it other than, I think I sent you the code already. And you may have already signed up. I don't remember. But yeah, it'll be the 13th. And the time's already listed on the, it is it's the same time as this last class, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern time. So. Do Hericiums tend to diamond? That's really, yeah, usually. My understanding is that they do. The one of the problems when working with breeding Hericiums, the biggest problem I've run into is not, like you can pretty much treat them like oysters or anything else, but they produce a prodigious amount of spores from what I've seen compared to oysters or anything else. Like just your spore prints will be thick a lot of times, and that's actually the hardest part is how to take a clean spore print a lot of times, and then other than that, you just treat them like oysters, and it works really, really well. Now they do. The alleles are, the mating types are a little different, in that there's a different number of them. And I cannot remember the number on either Hericiums or oysters. It's not really pertinent to the actual breeding work most of the time. You would think it would be, but it doesn't really change anything about how you do. You just start matching things up. And if it fails, it fails. Mofo said, nice to know Ed is still out there somewhere doing his thing. Man, it's the shirt. I'm going to have to pull this down because it keeps rubbing. Nice to know Ed's still out there doing his thing. It is good to know Ed is still doing his thing. I've been a little worried because I hadn't seen him back on much, but I'm glad to hear that he is out there still doing his Myco Druid thing. Somebody called me the mushroom king earlier, and I was like, nope, I don't like I'm very proper Scots-Irish on this. No kings. But I will take fungal druid hermit. I'll take that title. That would be a great title to have. Maybe not hermit. Unless it's a hermit that you could come visit, that would be okay. I like this visitation. I just don't want to see people every day. I'm a bit of an introvert, a little bit more of an introvert than I ever thought I was. I always thought I was more extroverted, but no, it turns out I'm pretty introverted. And maybe that's just because my extroversion is getting filled, or maybe I'm just like on the line somewhere. But let's take a quick sponsor break. Imagine a world where the most unique, rare, and powerful mushroom strains are preserved, studied, and shared with growers like you. That's exactly what we're building with the Mycologium, a living archive of fungal biodiversity, sourced from the wild, expanded in the lab, and made available for researchers, growers, and curious minds alike. But here's the best part. You can be a part of it. If you're a bioprospector, a forager, or just someone who loves finding cool mushrooms in the wild, you can send in your samples. If you send me in a wild mushroom and I can successfully clone it, I'll send you back a cleaned up culture of it. If you send me a culture that you've already cleaned up yourself, I'll send you one for our library, ready to grow, experiment with, or add to your collection. That's right. Culture for culture. You help expand the library, and you get something amazing in return. The goal? To preserve fungal diversity, to give people access to new genetics, and maybe, just maybe, to discover something truly groundbreaking. So if you've got an interesting mushroom, a rare find, or a strain that deserves a place in the archives, send it in. Let's build something incredible together. The Mycologium, preserving fungal biodiversity one culture at a time. Want to learn more? Hit us up, shoot us a message, and let's keep spawning culture, y'all. Excellent. Mycologium. I'm so excited to be able to spend some more time on that. I'm doing these classes. That's another thing that we're changing up, actually, is that we'll be doing far fewer mentorships, and probably what we'll do will be mostly lab-based mentorships going forward. I've got a couple of people that former students of mine, previous students of mine, who have gotten to the point where they are now surpassing what I ever did commercially, and I think I'm going to start moving people to them for week-long, like, commercial mentorships, and then I'm going to focus on the lab work because we do a lot more lab work than pretty much anybody does. So, I just had a life-changing meeting today. Oh, nice! I'm going to have access to some GC, MS, and HPLC machines to test alkaloid levels in my creations. Shooting for a 6.66% pan cross. You need to go like 6.67 or something, you know. A lot of maybe people won't buy it if it's the 666 one. And then a little pink poo. Hey Andrew, thanks for the mentorship last week. Learned so much. Hey Jason, just want to pop in and wish you and your family a great Thanksgiving. Well, happy Thanksgiving, Jason. It's great having you. Actually, I've got some pictures I need to send you because I was taking pictures when I was packing orders up today. Some of the plates and stuff that you did. And Samantha, you probably need to check in with Samantha about getting your mentorship box as well. I realized that we did not send that with you when you drove away. So I got a bunch of work that you did here that we need to send you. James D, just saw your post about that. That's amazing. Congratulations, especially interested in the GCMS day. I am too, actually. I mean, even though I'm not really into that world a lot, there's a lot of work being done. There's a lot of testing work, breeding work, and that kind of stuff being done in that world that I think is surpassing most of the other work done in the mushroom world. But I think that it's going to be pretty slick, especially if you've got access to those machines without having to pay a lot of money or something for them. So, doing Black Friday specials or promo codes? I hadn't really considered that, but I might do that. We don't tend to do a lot of sales just because we're already so overwhelmed that sales would only make us more overwhelmed. But I might throw one out on some liquid culture or some classes. Hey, what sort of comb tooth would you say is the lion's beard of the Coraloides? Very reliable. Lion's beard, as far as I know, is an Erinaceus, not a. Am I saying that right? Erinaceus. As far as the comb tooth goes, comb tooth is Coraloides, and comb tooth is different than lion's beard. So, it would be a lion's beard is typically known as a standard lion's mane strain. That said, I haven't seen actually any DNA testing done on it, and that is something I probably should just set up my own DNA lab and go ahead and get that done. As much as we do with the Mycologium, it'd be nice to be able to do that stuff in-house. But, kind of like the wolf's bloom that you sent us, I think I'm pretty positive that's an Erinacine. You know what? Let's see how Erinaceus is what they're saying. Erinaceus. I normally say Erinaceus, but maybe they're saying Sheus like that. But just do it. I know. Just do it. I do. I am actually, like, one of the reasons why we're moving to doing far more Hericium work is that it simplifies my life to specialize. And I need some simplicity in my life these days, especially my work life. So if I teach cultivation and a bunch of other things, but then I get to run the experiments in the background in the mycologium, and then get to focus on, my actual commercial work under the Hericium strains, then that'll leave me more time to set up the DNA lab. So. I mean, how among the Arenaceous lion's beard is very reliable, disease resistant, heavy yield or equivalent to. Oh, like how equivalent is it? I mean, lion's beard's pretty. It's a pretty aggressive strain. That's one of those ones that's been kind of commonly out there as a commercial strain. As far as I know, is almost every single Hericium strain that's in commercial cultivation tends to be. I think there's some outliers now, but for the longest time, all of them were just kind of wild strains. Whereas people have been breeding oysters for a long time, I haven't seen a lot of work done with Hericium breeding. So, as far as I know, lion's beard is a wild strain, and that was brought in, that just did well in cultivation under domestication. So, that's one of the nice things about Hericiums is they still very much act very feral, right? And that's probably because they are just wilds brought in, and so they tend to be very aggressive. It's probably also why they tend to spore so heavy, is that they're not being selectively bred. Like a lot of domestic oysters that have been under selective breeding for a long time do not produce anywhere near the amount of spores as the wild oysters. And so my guess is that Hericiums are in kind of the same state, that as they go in and we select for other traits, that the spore production may actually go down just as a natural consequence, but then maybe it'll come down because somebody selects for it. Among your comb tooth strains, what is the disease resistant, heavy and reliable week to week? Probably the one that we just call comb tooth. It's just it's like literally comb tooth strain. That is the comb tooth variety. The main difference is in morphology. There's a lot of like really fragile, frilly kind of comb tooths, and only a couple of the big, thick, branched ones. Where I mean, they've got like decent sized, long branches that come out that are thick fleshed, and as I've said before, very like almost like lobster tail like textured. Compared to, like, if you're thinking of lion's mane as the fake crab cakes or whatever. Your lion's beard have produced hundreds of kilos over the 2 years I've had it, week after week production for me. Well, thank you. Lion's beard is not my strain. I have lion's beard, and I realize that what you're saying is that the lion's beard that you got from me. I don't actually know where lion's beard came from the very, very first time. I feel like I used to know. And I probably would remember, but was that the one that was brought in by Leighton Banks? There was some Hericium strain brought in by Leighton Banks. Hericium also suffers from kind of the same thing that you see in a lot of the other actives circles, where people will take it and then just transfer it, and they're like, hey, I've got a new strain, and they'll just call it something else. And so that's something actually that I'm trying to work on right now is, doing some fuse testing where you put two different cultures in a plate and then see if they fuse. And if they fuse, it's most likely the same strain. And if they don't, then, but that test even isn't 100% effective, because some things will actually fuse that aren't the same strain. And even though it's a very small percentage. But it can be a decent test. When you did the Blue Snow series, what was the logical reasoning behind the cross? Was it mainly the white stem that you were after? No, that was me. The very first time I did the Blue Snow series was trying to find a visual indicator. So what you see now, like in genetic engineering, for example, is people are using the luciferin gene, the glow-in-the-dark gene. And they put that, and once they put that into an organism, you can see it visually. It's a visual indicator that it worked. And so for me, it was the blue crossed with the white. Blue should come up in a lot of shades of blue, especially if there's a dilution gene at work. Or you should see some white, some blue, some, various mixing of the phenotypes. But the blue, I was hoping would be a visual indicator. And it's turned out to be a very good visual indicator. So that being the case, the whole idea was that I chose just the whitest oyster I could find at the time, and I chose the bluest oyster I could find at the time, and then I crossed those. Back then, there wasn't nearly the selection that we have access to these days. But back then, I was just going, how will I know if I... Because back then, I was just putting spores to plate. I was literally taking a inoculation loop and gathering spores and then doing the crosshatch pattern, like a spore streak on a plate, turning the plate 90 degrees, taking spores from a different spore print, and then doing the same thing. And then wherever I saw anything grow in the crosshatch pattern, like where the two lines met, I would cut that out, put it in a plate, let it sector, and then I would isolate those strains out. And that brought out the Blue Snow series. And it was just a visual indicator thing. Like, how can I do this, and how can I know that the work I'm doing worked? How about the Elmsey and Blue Crosses, like King Blue and Copperhead? So those were... was it King Blue Elmsey or Elm-A? Anyways, the idea behind those was that the elm oyster was so aggressive. Now, it wasn't an elm oyster like the species. It was a strain of Austriatus. Let's see. My ADD kicked in. The idea was that if this was indeed an Austriatus and not a Hypzygus, then I would be able to cross it. Olmerius, sorry. Then I should be able to cross it. And again, we would see the different morphologies show up. But also, elm had a pretty superior stem at the time, and I wanted that stem. So that was kind of the reasoning behind that. By that point, I had proven out the white-blue cross and worked with it like that. So, what do you or the researchers think is the reason for the majority of the Hericiums being monokaryotic? I don't know that they actually... I can't remember if they posited a reason for that. My reasoning behind it, not necessarily my reasoning for why it does that. There's some selective pressure, I assume, but my thought more on this would be it's probably why we think of Hericium as being endangered, is because we don't tend to see it a lot. But it may be that that's just its natural way of doing things until, I guess, late life. And then late life, it might then have a spore land near it and fuse with it, and then have the whole mat be sexually active at that point. And so there's some, I don't know why, and I don't know that they gave a reason, but there's some sort of, reason that it has a different rhythm than a lot of other mushrooms. Like that. Now, there's probably a lot of other mushrooms that have a very similar strategy, but I don't actually remember the why on the study. I'd have to reread it. It's been a couple of years at least since I've read the studies. Well, I've been doing the same blue-white color with a Mon cross from Ed Grand, currently on F3 for each color. Excellent. I mean, hopefully you're publishing your work. Let's see. I've been doing the same blue-white color with a Mon crossing from Ed. So does that mean that you took a cross that he did, and then you're breeding the children from that single mushroom, or are you doing two crosses, two different spore prints, and then you've selected some and gone down the generations to the F3s? The cool thing is that if you do a cross between strains, you can then take that mushroom and breed it to itself 2 or 3 generations, and it allows you to see some hidden things that you may not have seen in that cross, some recessive traits, or some epigenetic switches that may not be pushed until 2 or 3 generations in. Where do you get your studies from, or do you have some interesting books you would recommend us? So the studies, I mean, are all over the place. So it's whatever publication I can get my hands on. AI is a really good one for researching studies. So you can ask an AI to give you a list of studies about different topics, right? And it nowadays, like ChatGPT can link those in place. It used to be really bad that it would make stuff up, and then you would have to ask for its references, and then it would go and you'd find out the study wasn't even real. So I do suggest that no matter what you talk to the AI about, you end up verifying whatever it says. It's a great research tool to point you in the right directions, but it must be verified. Trust but verify kind of thing. As far as books go, it kind of depends what you're interested in. If you're only interested in cultivation, there's a lot of great books out there at this point. You've got all the Paul Stamets books, which are Growing Gourmet and Medicinal Mushrooms, The Mushroom Cultivator, Mycelium Running is a pretty decent, like, permaculture or primitive style set where he teaches you how to use, like, mother patches and stuff a lot more. You have the Peter McCoy book, the Trad Cotter, and Trad Cotter's book, I can never remember the name. It's like Organic Mushroom Cultivation Farming. I can't remember. Micro Remediation. Shoot. I think I have it over there. Oh, the Peter McCoy book's called Radical Mycology. Yeah, hold on. Let me see what this is. Organic Mushroom Farming and Microremediation is Trad Cotter's book. And if you're looking for textbooks, I really suggest The Fungi. I've got The Fungi 3rd edition. I don't know if they have a more recent edition, but that's really the one that I would probably pick up if you're interested in the biology. And then as far as studies, I use the AI to help me source studies. But you can also go to Google Scholar. Google Scholar is a super cool thing. I think it's just google.scholar.com. Is it scholar.google.com or something like that? If you go to Google and Google Scholar, it'll take you there. And then you can literally search in that, and that brings up papers. So Google Scholar is a great search tool. Do you think breeding pink oysters towards a stronger shelf life is a pointless endeavor? I'm assuming at least one of the parent needs a good shelf life to begin with. Not necessarily. Sometimes it's a combination of different things. Sometimes you could take a oyster and breed it to itself and try to isolate something out that's causing a short shelf life, right? So we don't really know exactly what's causing the pink oyster a short shelf life. And if it's just a matter of slowing down its metabolism, that's definitely something that can be done. If it's because there's some sort of compound that as it degrades, the mushrooms break down, that's also a possibility too. So, if that's the point, then you might be removing something that causes the flavor or the unique growth habits or who knows, all kinds of different stuff. So I don't think it's a pointless endeavor. I think it's something that can mushrooms are very malleable. Genetics are kind of plastic malleable anyways, but mushrooms seem to be a little bit more malleable than many other organisms. And I think that breeding, you may not get there. You may not be the one. But, you may find a lot of other interesting things. So it'd be really interesting to find a pink oyster that operates like the moon pearls. That is an excellent point that a lot of people don't remember from Mendelian genetics. The cool recessive stuff doesn't start to show up until F2 and higher. Most F1s look pretty generic. Exactly, yeah. In fact, sometimes, depending on how stable your lines are and stuff, I mean, that's one of the reasons why, like, you have sex-linked chickens, right? You have chickens that you can literally tell by the color on the first generation, but then their second generation, the colors get all mixed up again. So, you don't actually get to see that until the second and third generation. I'm still working on my first generation Hericium crosses. I just started, played it out, maybe 5 or 6 second generation Hericium crosses that I've been working with. And I am very interested to see what kind of morphology do we get with Hericium when we start getting to selectively breed it and start getting to cross a bunch of cool stuff. And it may be nothing. It may be that it's pretty phenotypically bland. I don't think so. I think there's going to be far, far, far more textures and flavors and growth profiles to get out of Hericium. And we've just not seen it. And one of it is the colors aren't as exciting, right? The blue oyster, that was a pretty exciting cross. The first time I ever saw 50 Shades of Blue was pretty exciting. I even had one that was a very lavender colored oyster, and it has never, many times that I have bred blue and white oysters together, I have never succeeded in getting that lavender colored again. And that was one of the first crosses I ever did. And I wasn't as good about backing stuff up back then. So I don't have that lavender oyster, which sucks because that would have probably made me rich. Clone everything. Right. Well, greetings. Who cares? Mushroom Butt. As in you are the Mushroom Butt. James Dean. R4 times 9Y. Agreed. Oh, right, because it's in his name. It's the R4X9. And now I assume that's Ed, I assume that's referencing some sort of cross because X in breeder language has always meant a cross, right? And in mushrooms, unlike plants, you would always put the mother first, X the father plant, the one that you brought the pollen from. But with mushrooms, that it doesn't really matter. So usually when I'm doing batch breeding, that's the mother is the one. Like I'll take the snow goose oyster, for example, and I'll breed that to 4 or 5 different strains. And when I do that, it always becomes SGO, X, whatever other strains were there. So pinks already like the higher fruiting temps, and I feel like that's already a strike against it for longevity compared to cold fruiting firmer varieties. I agree, but I think that we can breed a preference into it, right? Like it had that preference because of selective pressures. Now, how cool would it be to go the reverse? To breed it towards a cooler, and that might increase its shelf life, and might even help get secondary metabolites going. Hold on one second. Hey folks, welcome to another sponsorship for the Mushroom Cast. We're always talking about dialing in your grow setup, and when it comes to humidity, there's one name we trust, House of Hydro. These foggers are an absolute game changer for mushroom cultivation. House of Hydro's ultrasonic humidifiers put out an incredibly fine, cool mist. So fine, in fact, that mycelium can actually uptake it straight from the air. That means better hydration, better growth, happier mushrooms, and better yields. And let me tell you, these things are way easier to vent around your op than setting up full-on plumbing pressure systems. No pipes, no hassle, just perfect humidity right where you need it. And when you're working with the best, you want the best support. John at House of Hydro takes care of his customers better than anyone in the game. If you ever need help, they've got you covered. And because House of Hydro is sponsoring the Mushroom Cast, we've got a deal for you. Use code MOSSY at checkout, and you'll get a full set worth of free replacement discs with your order. It's up to a $50 value. Get yourself a House of Hydro fogger. Your mushrooms will thank you. Keep spawning culture, y'all. All right, welcome back. Pearly White has been pretty stable. The Rocky Top has had that cool color split for me. Yeah. Did you end up cloning the 2 different colors to see if they did anything different? That was because you had probably the starkest difference in color shift with that that I've seen. I would assume Pearly White being a later generation would be less stable. No, not necessarily. Pearly White's been very, very stable. In fact, a lot of times as you selectively breed down, your genetics stabilize. That's one of the purposes of breeding down. And Pearly White is Mopez, Mopez, mother of pearl crossed with Elm Z. So that was Mother of Pearl's a blue snow cross, and then the Mother of Pearl and Rocky Top are sister strains, which just means they came from the same cross. And then big from the same spore prints. The Elm Z is a heat resistant elm oyster bred by Jay Schindler of Fungi for the People. Super talented guy that I don't see around much anymore. I wonder what he's up to. But and then yeah, Pearly White was a second gen cross of the Blue Snow series there. So yes, I am the mycelium supercomputer. Nice. Unfortunately, no, just the handle YouTube gave me. Well, I'm gonna change it again. Oh, okay. I just thought that was like, for a mushroom breeder, that looked like breeder speak. So I made a mushroom computer song. Well, you'll have to send it to me. I love having all kinds of mushroom songs made by the AI. Obviously, since I've had a couple, I need to change it again, actually. But I try to do there for a while I was trying to do a different song for every intro. I'll let someone else play with that. Fair enough. Well, my comment got struck down for mentioning the gram of the Insta. Oh, yeah, it all kinds of craziness, man. Like they watch out all kinds of things, things that you wouldn't expect. Did you see Sprout It? They seem to make some beautiful crosses with blues and whites and kings. I think so. If it's who I'm thinking of, but I can't keep up with all these names anymore. You get so busy doing your own work that you kind of lose touch. I know Ed and I talked about this. Like, you can't keep up with it all, especially if you're doing your own work. And then to be like, I'm not really a media personality. I'm a lab tech, So, but I think if it's who I'm thinking of, yes, and he has some amazing work that I would love to kind of collaborate, like take and see if I can breed further, that kind of thing. How do I DM you? The best way to DM me would probably just email me at mosscreekmushrooms@gmail.com. Either I or Samantha will get it, and if you address it to me and Samantha reads it, she'll make sure that I get it. Cigar gone. Word spawn over 30 days. I have emailed twice. No response. Can you look to it live? I can, but I'm pretty sure that I just emailed you today. I either emailed you or called because I was going through my accounting today for everything that I was behind on. I'll have to look at it the live, like you said, after the live because I can't really pay attention to it during this, but I know that I at least saw the email with the yin and yang symbol, and that's usually pretty obviously you. So, we'll check it after. Because I was behind on emails. We did back-to-back mentorships for a while. If you will, actually... Oh, I see it now. Okay, cool. You're right. I did email you. Okay. I'm not going crazy. Yeah, man. Sorry about that. Today was my accounting day. So, but we did the back-to-back mentorships. And then in every moment in between, I was preparing for the class, trying to figure out how cameras work with the laptops and being mobile in the warehouse and that kind of thing. So, yep. I'm glad that we got that sorted. It is always my want to try to take care of everybody. And if I don't, it's usually because I have gotten overwhelmed. So, How about breeding Maitake towards speed? I have a few strains that are super quick block colonizers. So Maitake tends to colonize quick. And then, yeah, fruiting. I think that's so there's so many species to play with right now and to get into breeding with. I'm actually going to do a mushroom breeding class. Probably, I don't know. I keep saying winter. But I've already got like 4 classes lined up for the winter time. So the mushroom breeding might have to be a summer class. I don't want to rush it because I don't want to teach every weekend. But about every other weekend, I could probably do consistently. So the best thing to do is to grow the Maitake in whatever way you see fit, and then spore print it when it fruits. And I know that's okay. That wasn't really a unique statement, I guess, or an amazing statement. But like the best thing to do is to like let's pheasant's back. I think pheasant's back is something that really could be bred. Like it's got everything going for it. It should be a commonly cultivated mushroom, but you have differences in quality, and you have a lot of pheasants back have just a hard time taking to domestication. So I think that the best thing to do is to take as many pheasants backs from the wild as you can, right? Put them through your cultivation process. Whatever ones do the best, take spore prints from those, and then breed those together, or breed them to themselves. Usually on an agar base that is like you can make a wood broth or something like that. But you make it out of your substrate, and then grow it out from there so that you are getting it strain trained. But also, a lot of times, like let's say you take a strain and you grow it for the first time in your operation. I don't see a lot of people do this, but the first time you grow a mushroom in your operation, you should absolutely clone that mushroom and then keep slants of the original strain, but also of your post substrate strain. And when you do that, you kind of strain train towards things, and it gets a little bit easier. But also just spore print it and then just run the spore prints out. And then isolate, run those spore prints out to agar, isolate your colonies from your plates, and then take them to the end process. And whichever ones grow in the fastest, select for again. And just do that over and over and over and over again. Just that kind of thing. I think that's going to be the easiest and the best way to get your Maitake. Is just constantly grow it out and just like all breeding work is selection. All we're trying to do is get the mushrooms to mate and then apply selective pressures. And that's actually something a lot of people forget, is to apply selective pressures. A lot of people breed and then they collect everything. And they keep everything. They kind of strain hoard. The most important part of a process of breeding, or the most important process of breeding, is the culling. And I don't necessarily like, let's say if you're breeding dogs, you want to cull any out that have hip dysplasia or something like that, or some sort of deformity. And that doesn't mean that you kill it necessarily. Like you don't have to kill it. You can just keep it from breeding, keep it out of the gene pool, keep it out of your lines like that. But you want to, as a strain breeder, you want to really apply a ton of selective pressures, find ways to do it creatively, and then kind of just help the organisms get together. Excuse me. But not a reliable breeder. Yeah. Maitake can be kind of unreliable. Excuse me. Hiccups. Don't rush it. Oh, as in the class, yeah, for sure. The best thing to do for breeding, in my opinion, other than to incorporate it into your life, is to just kind of systematize it. You can breed every day, once a week, whatever. But the idea, like, it's obviously that's going to be a lot, but you can systematize it to where once a month you put spores to plate. Once a month you pull the spore dishes and you isolate strains out. Once a month you put those. But see, you see where this gets quickly overwhelming. Even breeding one cross, because then you have the children, and then you have the grandchildren and the great grandchildren, or the F1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and you end up having if you keep every strain from every cross, you not only have to maintain those lines, which can be a cold storage, so you can buy yourself a few years that way on a lot of stuff. And I have done that where I've bred stuff, and I don't have time for this, and I've just slanted them out and thrown them in the fridge. And some of those I'm having to wake up now. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the big thing, is just to systematize it. And yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. I always love hearing mushroom songs. Yes, definitely. I'm not sure where there's the delay. I'm not entirely sure what we're. Yes, definitely. But I'm glad that we agree. Although that sort of cloning from fruit hurt the mycelium performance over time. Yes and no. If you did that over and over and over and over and over again, for sure. But Jacob Howard, for instance, took a mushroom, and Jacob Howard of the Mushroom Shop LLC. But he was trying to increase the size of the average mushroom across something. And what he did was he just did it clonally. You can absolutely do clonal generations. You're never going to get, I feel like, as extreme an effect as you will from spore. So germ cells are always going to have more genetic variability, so there's more to play with than clonal cells. And maybe I shouldn't say they will always have more genetic variability, but most of the time they'll have more genetic variability. If you actually breed a mushroom to itself using spores, so sexual selection, or sexual generations, there we go, sexual generations, then from a single mushroom source, then you may actually you'll be isolating genetics out a lot of times. Sometimes you'll be doubling genetics up. Sometimes you'll be completely removing them, that kind of thing. But as far as now you can go a few generations like this. It's you don't want to run like that forever. And it can hurt performance especially if you're feeding sugar, and only giving that food at the end. But again, I'm doing it a few times. That's not a big thing. It takes tons and tons of plates. It does get out of hand quickly. It absolutely. I have a rule for myself. I do not maintain more than 3 crosses. 3 strains from a single cross. I force myself to select down. Of course, I wrote the rules. I can break the rules if I want, but yeah, I mean that's the way to go. So LMFAO, I just started breeding pans with only 8 strains, and I've got 100 piles of plates, monos, crosses, F1s, F2s. I need to start getting stuff in water storage, slants, and tiles. Yeah, man, that's the problem. It just people think I'm going to be a mushroom breeder, and they don't realize it's not just the money that you spend on plates and agar and all that kind of stuff. It's not just the time. It's not just the materials. It affects everything because it requires so much attention to do it well. And there are absolutely ways to reduce the number of plates that you're using, but they come at a price. And so everything, of course, always comes with a price. So it's just, what am I willing to sacrifice to do this thing? What are my goals, and what am I willing to sacrifice to get there? But a lot of times it's going to be just a lot of time in the lab plating. And a lot of people love it. Some people hate it. I personally hate being in the lab for hours at a time. I like going to the lab, working a couple hours, go do something else, then go to the lab and work in a couple hours. But my ADHD starts going crazy after a while. I'll get depressed if I work in the lab for 6 hours straight. Did he do this on his porcelain? Yes, it was the porcelain. Oh, I don't even think I finished that. So what he did was he grew out a block. He's like, man, these mushrooms are pretty small. And so he chose the biggest mushroom out of all the blocks he did or whatever. And then he grew that out. And then he did it again, grew it on some blocks. And then he chose the largest mushroom again. And then 2 or 3 generations, I think he said it only took like 3 generations, clonal generations. And he had doubled the average size of the mushroom across the block. So huge benefits. Now you slant that, and then you just keep running off that slant. Where those slants or whatever. I always make multiple slants of everything I do. But yeah, I mean that's the way you go with it. Is that clonal strain training is what I would call that more than anything. But the strain training stuff is it has big benefits. I know that's how some people have gotten CO2 resistance in some mushrooms, where they handle higher CO2 environments. I know that's how some people have gotten. Of course, the average size of a mushroom, speed. I've bred an oyster, a king blue. I literally have a coffee king blue that I bred, or not bred, that I did the strain training, the clonal generations, and just on coffee grounds, because coffee grounds are so acidic. Oysters really don't like it. Shiitake doesn't seem to mind coffee grounds, but oysters hate it for the most part. They will adapt, and then you can grow mushrooms on coffee grounds. But it's amazing to me that so many people claim it's a good substrate, because almost everyone I know who's worked with it hates it. But you can absolutely train some strains to do it. And eventually I got to where that coffee king blue that I have leaps off into coffee grounds just as fast as it does hardwood. So it obviously can be bred or moved and trained into that direction. And I do think that what I want to do is, so I want to do the strain training on a couple of different strains for different things. And then I want to breed those strains together, specifically those variants. So a lot of people don't realize how much this can get into. There's a whole complex thing with mushrooms where you have raiments and you have genets. And a raiment, I believe, is the entire organism, and a genet is a subcolony of that. So in the wild, you'll have a mycelial mat, and let's say you have a dry period, and different sections of the colony will die off, and it'll isolate certain colonies. Well, these two are still the same organism, because given the right environment, they'll fuse back together. But they are, in the moment, different genets. They are clones of each other. They are genetically identical. And when you do this into slants, you have what I call cell lines. So you have king blue, but then you'll have a cell line, that's been treated this way. Then you'll have so the coffee king blue is the same strain as king blue, but it's the cell line that has been trained. And then you could do coffee king blue V1, V2, V3. You see this a lot in agricultural crops. So somebody, like say in my area here, will buy seed of oats from somewhere, and then they'll grow it, and they'll grow it for 6 years, and then it becomes, fat head oats, Jefferson City variant 6, something like that. So the strain training can be quite complex. Now, granted, that variant 6 in the oats that we're talking about would be when they're bred to themselves. I think oats are self-fertile grains. But again, that would be sexual selection, and we're talking clones here. But clones, mushrooms, because they're unique physiology, absolutely work in a clonal fashion this way. They lend themselves to that because they already do this in nature, where you have a raiment and all the genets, and then they can come back. So when you're looking at it, one of my favorite things to think about is you have a whole wall of mushrooms, and say it's the same strain. You're like, that wall is a raiment, and each one of those bags is a genet of that whole raiment. Anyways, this is why I'm not started breeding yet, even though I want to. Yeah, it gets overwhelming. It gets quick. I mean, you've heard it from a couple of guys here that it's definitely overwhelming. Whoa, you can shift it that easily? You absolutely can. Yeah, it just takes this train. Now it's like when I did it to the coffee, I did agar to a plate of coffee grounds. I mean, I literally just did it like that. And for some advice, when you do this, like when you've got the plate, don't put it in the center like you normally would. Put it on the edge. So you transfer from a plate, to sterile coffee grounds. Let's say, put your clone right there against the wall. Let it grow all the way across. Then select for the opposite side of the dish, and that way you've got the most amount of cellular divisions as possible, plate to plate. Now you can grow it in a bag, and then just clone the mushroom, and that will get you more cellular divisions. So, listen, a gal has to have a hobby. If I'm buying a pallet of plates and a 150-liter autoclave, it's still going to be cheaper than Coke or skiing. That's true. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's cheaper than skiing, and it's probably cheaper than a Coke habit. So I'll give it to you there. I have quite a few things that I can do that on. Yeah, so in your unique situation, Jake, I think this would actually benefit you a lot, because you have limited access, to different materials than the rest of us, or maybe not even limited, but different access. Most of your stuff would be coming out of, I think you said, Russia and or China. Whereas most of what I get is coming out of the States or Canada. So, Middle Earth, I hear that. I agree, Middle, great hobby choice. Exactly. Especially compared to either one of those. Isn't snowboarding a little cheaper? I should be doing that for at least training all of them towards pine digestion. Then, yes, if pine is the pellet that you have the most access to, absolutely train towards that. That's a great way to go. At least our mushrooms have short life cycle. Plant breeders have to wait months or years to see the results, but it does get stressful. Yeah, so that crop velocity, or I always call it crop velocity, is from how quickly can I go from seed to fruit kind of thing. You're absolutely right. It's fast, but that is a double-edged sword, because plus where we do this indoors a lot, like we can go all year. These guys at least sometimes get a break. But yeah, pepper breeding is way less stressful. I've been playing at pepper breeding a little bit, and it's fun, super great. Thinking about playing a lot with jalapenos, because I did a lot of jalapenos this year. So I got a lot of jalapeno seeds, and I've got a bunch of different types of jalapenos now, and that I really want to play around with. And I also there's a Reza Macedonian pepper. It's got these cracked lines running through it. And then there's a Zapotec jalapeno, which has vertical cracks running through it. And I want to see what happens if I cross these two that have all these cracks and ridges and stuff in them. So it'd be fun to play around with. I'll start trying to make polyploids and interspecific hybrids with, what is that one? Colchicine? Oral prescription medication derived from plants primarily used to treat and prevent gout flares. Why would you use that? Anti-inflammatory and disrupting cellular processes. Okay, got it. Aha. That makes a lot of sense. Not when I fall, bust my ass, break my hand, and then can't tattoo. No thanks. Oh, fair enough. That's a good point. Yeah, you don't want to kill your living. That's true. You could do that hiking, though. You're out there looking for bioprospect and stuff. I do run them on pine pellets. Would that work towards it? Or does the whole process need to be involved, like the fruiting? I do. No, you can just run it mycelium to mycelium. You don't have to run it out to the fruit. I do occasionally run them on wood gar plates that you were talking about. Yeah, that's a great way to go. I've got a bunch of cedar sawdust. I'm about to run a bunch of spalting strains that I've got. We run the spalting strains to cedar because there's some cedar planks I'm about to have access to, fresh milled, that I really want to play with spalting. Man, my spalting experiments have been going gangbusters. Oh, speaking of, I realized today that I have 3 different philodendron plants that will be receptive to pollen in the next couple of days. Love to get across. Yes, you should. You absolutely should. I think that'd be a great thing to do. Yeah, 100%. I love crossing stuff and getting your own cool things is just absolutely amazing. I'll be right back, guys. I gotta go take a pee real quick.
Introducing the future of mycology, Dr. Silurian's elixir of mycelial mastery. This isn't your average culture mix. It's a revolution in a packet. crafted for the dedicated cultivator seeking unparalleled growth. Experience the visual alchemy of this masterful brew. As you mix 10 grams with 500 milliliters of water, watch the solution transform into a rich, amber spectacle, the hallmark of a nutrient-dense sanctuary for your burgeoning mycelium. This is where vibrant color meets vibrant life, setting our elixir apart from the ordinary clear liquid cultures. Prepare to be captivated. Mix 10 grams of Dr. Silurian's elixir with 500 milliliters of water, add a stir bar for thorough integration, and sterilize the blend at 15 psi for 45 minutes. Once cooled, introduce your favorite culture into this perfectly prepared, nutrient-rich environment. Watch in awe as the elixir works its magic, unveiling a mycelial masterpiece before your eyes. Choose Dr. Silurian's Elixir of Mycelial Mastery for a mycological adventure that's as visually enchanting as it is potent.
Welcome back to my presence. Let's see what we got here. Bioengineered mushrooms. Are you asking me about bioengineered mushrooms? In theory, I don't have a problem with it. I'm not against genetic engineering per se. I have some thoughts on how we can do it responsibly, but no, I don't think like I get the newsletter from the Open Discovery Institute, and I am interested in some of the work that they are doing, and I have made my own glow-in-the-dark beer, and that kind of thing. So no, I'm not against them, kind of thing. But am I excited by the idea of taking DNA from one thing and just placing it into another thing? Yeah, okay, I'm excited by it. But is it some dirty Tlilaxu shit? It's kind of dirty Tlilaxu shit. So I think that it is better to selectively breed these organisms than to try to take the shortcuts necessarily. I also question if we have the wisdom to operate with this stuff responsibly. That said, we're going to. So I think that it's naive of me if I say that we should try to ban it, because I think that it's going to happen anyways. And so the best thing to do is to have a whole subset of the population who is armed with that knowledge on how some of this stuff can be used dangerously. Not saying that they should be doing dangerous things necessarily, because here's the thing. I think it's great if we have somewhere like Mars, like if we have a Mars or Moon colony where we can not guarantee, but extremely limit what happens here. So, but for an example, a good use, I think, a responsible use, because we humans are changing things anyways, and not just genetic engineering, but we've changed the ecosystem, that I think that it's conservation is too late. Conservation is not about keeping things the way they are or were, or some idealistic version. Conservation, in my opinion, is more about saving as many genes as possible, saving as much of our genetic diversity strength as possible, trying to, maybe limit some of the damage, not maybe, but limit as much damage as possible to many of these ecosystems. But the truth is, we need to catalog everything as much as we can right now. And then what you're going to see is as genetic catastrophes happen, what you want is an army of biohackers and selective breeders who are there to fill in the gaps. And I don't think that's a good answer. I don't think it's the I don't think it's necessarily like the right answer, but it's kind of the best that I can come up with right now, in that I can't see it stopping. I can't see CRISPR makes it too easy. And I mean, even the lady who invented it is like, this stuff is dangerous, and maybe we should. But even if you outlaw it, that's only going to keep the good folk out of it. For the most part, it might limit some of the spread, but some of the more dangerous stuff can absolutely be done. But if you get a lot of people who are doing it out in the open, where their processes can be observed, I think that that's a great thing. Now, the responsible use, I think, use case is like, and this is kind of just to kind of back up my point here, is the American chestnut, for example. My grandfather, when I was growing up, had a lot of hybrid Chinese and American chestnut trees on his property, and their progeny, they would live for a certain amount of time and then die off. But there are some, you're starting to see some of them stabilize on his property. But I want to point something out here. When you do that and you hybridize something, like a true hybridization, a true cross, it's half the DNA is the Chinese chestnut. So, you're only saving half the American chestnut by doing that. But if you take genetic engineering and you insert a single gene for chestnut blight resistance from the Chinese chestnut to the American chestnut, as they have, and they have across Tennessee and many of our state parks, testing stations where they have American chestnuts, Chinese chestnuts, the hybrids, and these genetically engineered trees. And the genetically engineered trees are living. And it's a single gene transfer. So because it's a single gene transfer, you're saving 99.9999999% of the American chestnut by doing that. That's a beautiful use of it. The blight was brought by us, right? So if the blight was brought by us and we can bring a single gene over to help correct for that, I am all for that. The bioengineering of the mushrooms. So there's the genetically engineered mushroom. They don't even have to list that it's genetically engineered when they grow it, because they didn't add any genetics to it. They used it to knock out CRISPR to knock out the browning gene. And of course, I could always misspeak on some of the technical details of this stuff, guys. But the gene that, like, when you cut button mushrooms and they start to brown, they just removed the gene for that. So now it doesn't brown, and now you don't know the age of the mushroom. I don't think that's a good use necessarily, but I don't think that that's a bad use. It's kind of like why they bred the white enoki, was just so you could buy older mushrooms, and they could sell you older mushrooms and you wouldn't know it. That's why the white enoki was bred in the first place over the gold enoki. In my opinion, the golden enoki is far better flavor and texture than the white enoki, but the white enoki doesn't develop that velvet foot at the bottom on a mature mushroom, so you can sell older mushrooms. It's kind of like why they did the button genetic engineering on that one, and I don't necessarily know that I agree with that, but I don't think it's a bad use of genetic engineering in that case. So yeah, I'm excited by some of that stuff, but I'm also very, very cautious on a lot of that stuff. I think we as humanity, as a society, should probably focus a lot more on selective breeding. We have done so little, even though we've done so much with selective breeding. We have done so little with it. Really, I mean, the cabbage is a great one. The brassicas are a beautiful family of, was it broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, bok choy, mustard greens, and more. Kale, all come from the same. They're all domesticated versions of a wild brassica, and so, like, that's so cool. Look at what people are doing with isopods right now. rubber ducky, the Dalmatians, the all kinds of stuff like this. Like I think that we as humanity could be doing so much more with selective breeding to help ourselves out, and through that, we would gain a lot of wisdom in proper and I hate to use these words, but proper and improper use. Best case use, maybe, is what I'm thinking of. There's a beautiful book called Unnatural Selection by, is it Cat Grau? Oh, I don't see it. Oh, no, there it is. Katrina von Grau, Unnatural Selection. That's a great book on what's like pigeons. Look at all the pigeons and the pigeon fanciers and all that kind of stuff. Like the power dogs. Like she goes through and does many medical illustrations of dog skeletons and like what they look like from 50 years ago and what they look like now and how much we've transmuted them. So I don't know. I get excited about this stuff. But I think that we need to be very, very cautious. And I'll get off that topic. I realize that was a single statement that I spent a lot of time on. I'm passionate about that topic, guys. It's easy to get me on genetics. But I also think that when we go to space, we're going to have genetic engineering and the abundance it can create. So would spore breeding on the wood guard plates work better? Probably. It'd take longer, but probably. I kept reading about how maitake really doesn't like soft wood. I was wondering if I should do that for my maitake test. I would. I never tested maitake on the pine pellets. So, I'm trying to remember. I know people grow them on fir, but I don't know how soft Douglas fir actually is. We don't have a lot of Douglas fir trees around here. So I don't really know anything about that. But if you have a hard time growing maitake on on soft wood pellets like that, then yeah, I would absolutely do that. Talking to the guy who cloned his biggest fruit, would spores from the 3rd gen clone be more likely to be bigger? I think that you're going to see greater variability. So I think that the extremes could be in both directions. So I think that you would have some that probably are bigger. And then you might have a lot that are smaller. So the problem is that there are good rules to follow, but like, so Mendelian genetics, as Ed mentioned earlier, thank goodness he chose the P, and whatever his second one was, but with his third one, he almost gave up, which granted, I think he did give up because he then turned to administering the Abbey that he was a part of. He got voted in as the administrator, and he had to stop his passion science projects in favor of service to his monastery. But he was trying to prove a genetic basis basically for breeding of some sort of other organism, and it had a more complicated breeding pattern. So it's going to be the true answer to your question is it's going to be based on an organism and how those genetics actually fit together. But as a general rule, I would think you're correct. That said, it's going to depend. It always depends. We don't understand a lot of mushroom genetics yet. And there are people who understand a lot more, but, tend to be in academia. And even then, I don't know how much their application knowledge would work on that. So it's very much one of those things that we're going to have to figure out in the next 50 years, I think. But I think that as a general rule, you've got a good one right there. And it's going to depend, too, on the mating type. Because mushrooms can get real weird on their mating. Real weird. Then there is mutagenesis. Yes, absolutely. Leave it to Ed to bring up mutagenesis. I want to get a hold of some proper mutagens like ethyl methyl sulfide. Chicin is hard to get pure, but it is at a low concentration in gout medicine. Fluconazole is another. So what I've heard, Ed, is that rosary pea is one, but it can be kind of dangerous to work with. So far, I've had really good results working mutagenesis with UV radiation. I've gotten a really good, nice broad spectrum of mutations that that I'm getting using UV light, and I'm just creating a kill curve and then selecting typically for the very top edge of that kill curve for the UV light, just blasting spores. I've been wanting to try mycelium, but I thought I'd probably have the best chances of getting something strange by blasting spores. And what I was doing was blasting spores from 2 different spore prints and then crossing them together. And I'm calling it right now, it's called the rad oyster, as in radiation oyster, but it's just UV radiation. Yeah, Alan Rockefeller was the one that set me up on that one. He was saying that, because I was asking about all kinds of stuff, and he was like, I would just go with UV for now. What do you think, Ed? Yeah, dangerous. Genetic engineering? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely it can. It's so fun to participate in the live. I miss this. Jake, I've missed having you. I do need to figure out what's going to be a good day to start the Discord chats back up. I might just do them sporadically so that there's time during the day some weeks and then time during the evening in some weeks. Because I had a lot of international students in this last class, as well as a lot of domestic. So I need to figure out a way to split my time between the two more effectively. Talk about the genetic engineering is going to happen? Yeah, absolutely. It's just going to happen. We're already seeing it. So there was a time when I was on Amazon and I saw this petunia. I love petunias. Petunias are a beautiful flower to grow and easy and common in these parts. But I saw this color, and now I can't remember what it was. But I saw this color of this petunia on Amazon, that this guy selling seeds, that I was like, I've never seen this before. So I bought it. And weeks go by, and I'm not getting this order. And I'm like, that's strange. And it's like held up. And I was like, okay, that's just weird. And then I finally got the package. And in the package was a note from the USDA that they had confiscated my seeds. And apparently went knocking on this guy's door because apparently he had done this in his garage. He had legitimately did CRISPR in his garage and created a whole new color. He imported a color from some other flower into the petunias. And because he brought DNA from one species to another, it had to be registered, and he hadn't registered it. But people are doing this in their garages, guys. I mean, you got microbiologists like ourselves. We're doing fungus, yeah, but we're doing, stuff in our garages, our base. I started off in my basement, random warehouses, East Tennessee in general, but kind of Jeff City, Jeff County, Knoxville area is becoming like a big hotbed in biology, and you're seeing all kinds of selective breeders and all people changing up all kinds of biology-based stuff, big time. Hey, Aislinn, your DC wants you to call her, please. You did? Oh, you guys talked to her? Huh? Spend the night. You're going to spend the night? Tonight? Okay. Cool. I'm sorry, I didn't know. You what? Oh, you didn't sound rude. I didn't think. All right. See, am I still on? Okay. Make sure I get back on. So yeah, it's definitely going to happen. That would be great. I'm hoping you're talking about the Mars colony, because I think the Mars colony would absolutely be great. It got me taking notes. Can't pronounce words I'm writing. I mean, Google pronunciate. Google, how do I say this word? That's the best way to go, in my opinion. For long-term storage, do spores not last as long as water mycelium? So a dry spore print should last a very long time, but I will say, this has been told to me, and I have not verified this, but it does seem to be correct, that in my experience, that the moment you dry a spore print, you lose like 75% of its viability for a lot of these species that we're working with, a lot of these white rots. The moment the spores dry out, you lose a ton of viability. But because we're dealing with billions, millions, or hundreds of thousands of spores in a print, then your let's say you had 5% of your spores were viable in a print, and you have hundreds of thousands of spores. Well, that's still a lot. That's still more genetic material than you really need to make it work. So that's as far as like water storage, I would think that would keep them hydrated. The problem with spores in water, in my understanding, is that typically spores germinate when they hit water like that. So, I don't know. I don't do a lot of like the Castellani methods and things like that. I've started playing with it, but it's one of those things that I want to thoroughly test. Like slants are tried and true and tested for all kinds of species, all kinds of strains, all kinds of tissue, but they are not. The Castellani has been tested on a fair number of things, but I don't know that it's really. I don't know that it's really been proven out, and I want to prove it out in my op before I just transition to it fully. But as far as like mold spores, I've got Koji spores that a friend gave me. Josh McGinnis from Everyman Bio gave me some Koji spores like 2 years ago when he came down, and I pulled some out recently and put them to plate, and they grew out just fine. So I think that works out pretty well. Spoilers, it works just fine. Wait, what works just fine? Then again, I really have no idea what fine is. I always wonder if my lower yields are tied to what? Tied to what? What was I talking about? Oh no, softwood. If you grow mushrooms where many fruits are common, how do you clonally select for traits you want? Also, picking the biggest one is easy, but if I want the fastest colonizing one. So the fastest colonizing one would be which block, you'd have to do. You're going to have to set aside some sort of unit, and then you're going to have to find some way to observe it. So if I was going for fastest, I would use a biopsy tool so that I would have the exact same amount of tissue. But the problem with this is that it matters where you biopsy in the colony. Mushrooms have this wonderful ability to shunt nuclei around, and they can actually, a lot of times why you're told to take tissue from the leading edge of mycelium is because you get they basically stuff the front edge there with a bunch of nuclei to increase the ability for division to happen. This is not necessarily true for everything. This is just the kind of a general rule, common knowledge, I guess, or something like that. I don't really know how you would put it, but Ed probably would know more about that than I would. But the idea is that's what clamp connections are for, is for being able to move nuclei around after division. But if grow mushrooms where many fruits are common, how do you clonally select for traits you want? Again, this would just be you'd have to find some way to observe it. So fastest, you take a biopsy tool, so you're taking the same amount of tissue every time, and then you plate out your different isolates, and that way you can observe which ones cover a dish faster, or which ones end result mushrooms, like which ones pin faster, so you might have to put it to a fruiting substrate for that. Which ones, there's a lot of different things. 1 second. Maybe that was this one. Sorry, I'm balancing two phones. Okay. It is not. I think it's Samantha's phone dinging. But yeah, that'd be the way I would go. So, which one of my 20 fruits to clone? Yeah, for the fastest, you would need to know which one reached maturity the soonest, and that it was not just an environmental condition that caused that. So, what's your UV process time-wise? I was wondering about UV for cleaning. So cleanings will be very different than mutagenesis. Right now, my kill curves sit around. I've just got a basic desk lamp with a bulb, and I just get it really close to my spore, the spores that you're working with. So, like, let's say you can put them on a plate, then you can blast that plate. I'll work for 3 seconds, 5 seconds, and 8 seconds is my normal baseline curve. And then as far as UV for cleaning, just be very careful with it. We've seen people literally put themselves in the hospital. There's a famous thing somewhere on the mushroom growing group in Facebook where a guy got like literal, like they taped stuff to his eyes so they could drip irrigate his eyes because he worked in front of his hood with his UV light on. So I would just make sure you have some way to make sure you're not working around your UV light. And it's like, the best thing is if you can turn it on when you leave, and it only turns on when your hood goes off or whatever, or your lights go off, so that you're not, ever in danger of working around there. Plus, you don't want skin cancer from UV radiation, that kind of thing. I don't think it's necessary for cleaning. Usually a good disinfectant is gonna do you just fine, but UV is definitely something to be very careful with. I'm scared to use UV that strong. I saw something about normal heat causing mutations too. Maybe they got some stuff left over at Oak Ridge you could borrow. They're rebuilding that whole thing for like this big AI data center. Samantha was telling me, they're tearing down like all the old plants where they made the atomic bombs here, and they're opening up the labs to do a ton of AI work. So it's gonna be interesting. They're making this an AI hotbed, apparently. See what? They're going to like doing a lot of 3D imaging stuff, and yeah, it's gonna be pretty killer. Time for Franken mushroom. I mean, maybe. Certainly some of that stuff going on. This is probably the best conversation about breeding I've heard in a while. It's a deep rabbit hole lined with plates once you start getting to it. It is. Like it lined with plates is right. It's follow the plate road. What? Yeah, and it's just the tip of the iceberg is what Samantha's saying. And she's right. Like it's and I know you know this, Ed. It's like the like this is all so simplistic. You can get I do get into it in my mentorships, my in-person mentorships. Like the end day is always sent on a simplistic mushroom breeding tech that you can use, the technique, because I'm trying to get, like, even if a 10th or 1/64th of my mentees got interested in breeding over the past couple of years, I got hooked by it, then that would be great. And I've had a couple pick it up. Not very many, and not very deep. I mean, the truth is that it doesn't make you a lot of money in the beginning. And honestly, it's a hard game because you end up having, because of the very nature of mushrooms, they can just be cloned, right? And then people can take that clone and resell it and all kinds of stuff. And there's not a lot of IP like protection, so that kind of stuff. But it's my favorite thing in the world, honestly. The psilocybin beers terrify me. It can get so strong so quick so easily. Y'all American pushed the 7-part leaf too far. Well, I agree. If you're going to get into it, like, I like the foul, toe jam taste of the mushrooms because it lets you know that you've got to sacrifice something here. One of the candy caps seemed to be a saprotroph. I really need to find that one. If one of them is, I would love to get my hands on it. I wonder if the mycelium has any of the flavor that could be extracted. See, that would be an interesting extract if that a mycelial extract. The castellating method uses pre-grown agar pieces in water. Oh, okay. I've seen people use spores in it. So spores in water, like multi-spore syringes for BRF, PF cakes, don't last more than a year or two. See, that's what I was thinking too. But I've definitely like mold spores I've seen stored, but I hadn't seen Basidiomycetes spores stored in the water. So, well, wait, I didn't know they push nuclei around. Interesting about leading edges of plates having more. So maybe my theory of taking from the middle of the plate, letting you get more generations, isn't likely. I've been tinkering with the theory that a given mycelium is only viable for so many inches of growth away from initial spore sprout. That might be true, but you got to remember, like you have like a 2,000-year-old mat that's like a 1 point, like what is it, like 1.2, 1.4, I don't know, miles across or something like that, or is it like 2 miles across in one direction and 1 point something in another? It's a big honey mushroom mat, though I think it's shrinking now, but that could just be a normal ebb and flow. I mean, over 2,000 years, who knows how many times it's grown and shrank. That said, the generations of division, I don't think really matter that much. That's kind of like the p value that Stamets was working with until you get to senescence. But as we found out, mushrooms, at least the ones we're working with, don't seem to age the way we do. They don't seem to have senescence, old age, the way we do. They tend to get more enzyme blindness. So if you're going on agar to agar to agar to agar to liquid culture to even to grain, all that stuff is really easy to eat food. And wood is harder to eat. So think of it more as like mushroom diabetes. If I keep my generation after generation feeding them soda, they're going to develop diabetes. And then when you give them something harder to eat, their body is going to have forgotten how to produce insulin, right? Something like that. Has anyone tested how many viable plate transfers they can get if sampling from center of plate to versus? I don't think so. I haven't seen any direct ones. It'd probably be a while. And the question is, before, like, how long can you go before you start to lose vitality, vigor, yield? Followed Ed for the last year or so and got really interested in it. I know I'll jump down that rabbit hole soon enough. Yeah, breeding's a huge rabbit hole, man. I have a timer UV in my fogger. Was thinking about a timer for my hood as an extra level when not in use. I was more concerned with potential mutations from exposures. Yeah, you would want to keep your specimens away from it. But I will say that when I do this, I have to do it lid off because your polystyrene plates, your polypropylene slants, and things like that block a lot of the UV light. So it'd probably be minimal damage there. Majority of either wood's soft and hard is cellulose anyways, and there is no difference. Yes, the softwood and lignin chain is okay. Woo. All right. I was not prepared for that. Majority of either softwoods or of either woods, soft and hard, is cellulose anyways. Yes, and there is no difference. Yes, the softwood lignin chain is gooey acyl chain. I hope I'm saying that right. Notoriously chemically hard to break, but still 50% cellulose. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So you got celluloses, hemicelluloses, and you got your lignins. Like there's a bunch of what else is there? Anyways, yeah, all these are basically just carbon chains that are bound in different forms. And so hemicellulose is the easiest to eat. Cellulose is the next. And then lignin is oftentimes what plants use to create structure. It's a much more complex molecule and more difficult to break apart, but it also tends to wrap around. So if you think of like cellulose is moving up like a fiber, for example, you have all these little attachment points. Well, lignin kind of surrounds and attaches to those attachment points like scaffolding. And in doing so, block another molecule's ability to pull at that attachment point. So the lignin has to be broken down before you can access the cellulose inside and the hemicelluloses. And white rot fungi produce this wonderful little substance called lignase, which breaks down lignin, and hence why we don't really produce fossil fuels anymore. Why? If you look at where fossil fuels stopped being produced, that's pretty much where white rot fungi started taking over the earth. Right after the Carboniferous period. For sure, breeding isn't a way to get rich. I heard a Dutch tulip breeder talking about how he'd be lucky if one of his new crosses made money once in his career. Yeah, I believe that. I believe that. There's ways to do it, and you see people, and when they strike it, they tend to strike it big. But it's definitely one of these it's a prospecting game where it's kind of high risk, high reward. You end up spending a lot of time, like you're sifting through genetics constantly, right? Sifting and adding and moving, and you're just trying to selecting for putting pressures on and hoping that the pressures aren't so much they kill it, versus kind of push it in that direction. I also think that there's like ebbs and flows and some things that you would expect, like rare. People oftentimes get into really rare plants, I've noticed, for like the plant tissue culture. As I've gotten more and more into plant tissue culture, I've noticed that you got people that will get into really rare plants. They're like, man, I bought this plant for $400 and I'm going to sell all my propagules at $400. And you might. But the question is, how many of those are you actually going to sell? Versus some of the cheaper plants like peppers. Peppers are incredibly popular and they sell for a lot less. But you're going to make a lot more money on them because the demand is so much higher. So I know I need to watch this episode again. My brain exploded a while ago. It happens, man. It happens a lot. My head has regularly exploded. Price of being an innovation broker. I recently saw an article that humans can get calories from cellulose and fiber because certain gut bacteria can break it down in the digestive tract. It made me wonder if mushroom farmers may ever find. I assume there's a continuation I'm waiting on, but I will go ahead and comment on it. I think so. I mean, that's how ruminants do it. That's how they break down stuff as bacteria. We might be able to get some. I don't know how much we would get, and it kind of depends on what is it like. So you have like sunchokes. Jerusalem artichokes produce a substance called inulin, Inulin, I think, inulin. And we can't break down inulin, but our gut bacteria can. But it's also why if you eat Jerusalem artichokes and you don't cook it and render that down, that your gut bacteria go crazy and it makes you super gassy, Mushroom farmers may ever find bacterial symbiotic strains they inoculate their substrate to improve yields. There are people that have done that, though it tends to be in the casing layer. So maybe it's not a breakdown to improve the yields, but more of a trigger. But they find, and I always love how people are like, they'll talk about, these mushrooms don't like to fruit unless you give them their proper symbiotic bacteria. And it's like, is that really what it is? Because a lot of times mushrooms fruit in response to stress. So are you just giving it a bacteria that it likes, but it's not that it likes it. It's that you've stressed it just enough that it produces really well. Anyways, that doesn't really have anything to do with what you're talking about here. But yeah, there are people that are working with different bacterial stuff. I know Jasmine Richardson from the Mushroom Grow Group. I mean, it's not where she's from. She's Dr. Jasmine Richardson now, but she was working with truffles, and then she was doing some work on how they're polycultures. So, and how they have symbiotic bacteria, and I'm not entirely sure where her work's gone, but I know she gives talks and stuff on it now. But welcome back. Do what? You what? Oh, fair enough. You went over there. Oh, man. Lower reproduction is a good stress. That's true. I guess it is. Not if you're doing it right. It should be stressful. No. Nothing. Bad joke on my part. They sell Jerusalem artichokes here in Thailand. The flash of the gas is very real. Kind of fun though if you're alone. I mean, kind of fun if it was just me and Samantha. I'm not too old for a fart joke. You gotta have that humor. That's how you stay young. It's keeping that humor alive. That's funny. I didn't know that they would sell it there. I mean, it's a great food. We used to grow it at the house where the mushroom shop was. But yeah, I mean, it was. I wonder if you could grow mushrooms on the Jerusalem artichokes, and if that would remove the inulin, and then if they would actually render them down to being more edible. Would you be able to expand on the nuclei thing and taking transfers from the leading edge of the agar? How does it work, and why is that desirable? I probably could if you leave me a little bit of time to refresh myself. The reason why it would be desirable is because you would have more nuclei for division. It would just be a speed thing. So how do you put this? Like, there's the idea of mycelium running, which is I guess Paul Stamets coined that term, but you're literally just kind of once you get a mushroom into stasis, a strain into stasis, it's really slow, right? And so therefore the more, because the is it meiosis? That's the division aspect. So you have your nuclei, which is the center of your cell. It's where your chromosomes are kept. Your cell goes through a transition for division, and I think it's meiosis is where your nuclei will basically divide and double, and then it'll separate off into a whole new cell by having doubled and then or have divided and doubled. You're asking. I've never actually sat down and had to explain this before. So the idea there is that I now have two cells. Each one has two nuclei. If I'm moving in a straight line, so you got mitosis and meiosis. Is it mitosis that's the Okay, mitosis is the cell process of cell division in two identically daughter cells, and meiosis is is a special type of cell division that produces four genetically unique haploid cells. Okay, so meiosis is the sexual selection. Mitosis is mitosis is basically the clone to clone kind of thing. All right. So if you have this division going on and you have this reproduction of nuclei, let's say you have a cell, and it's reproducing in this linear fashion. Wouldn't it be nice if you could open this up and move a bunch of these forward and jam pack them in the front so that you have your cell, and you move them forward, and now you have four here, and bam, it can branch out, and now they are able to power a cell division. Now, this leading edge is multiplying, and the ring is getting larger, and it's dividing out. And if you can capture the edge here, it's going to keep running, and it's going to keep running at a much faster rate. Some people think that there's genetic diversity there. Some people think there is not genetic diversity there because it's the same organism. We do know that mushrooms can be multi-parented. So you can actually have some strains that are not just the monokaryon and monokaryon. They may have 3 parent strains. I'm not saying that this is a common thing. I don't actually know the rate of it. But the idea here now is that because you have 2 or 3 parents, or 3 or 4 parents maybe running around, genetically speaking, in this organism, that you have some genetic diversity going on. And the idea would be like you have right here a cell division, and then here a cell division, and these two are recognized as the same organism, but they're only half related to each other, kind of. It's too simplistic. But now, let's say that you hit an antibiotic layer, right? And this comes up here, and it's like, oh, I don't like this. And it takes a really long time. Like, it's having to really break that antibiotic down, and it's slow. But then this one hits it, and it's like, oh, I got a gene for that. Bam, right? And now it takes off. And the next thing you know, it's got 4 of them here. And now it's taking over. And this one is slowly making its way, but it's really not doing much. And then that's how you get that, like, when they do the gradient plates, where you have a nutrient gradient or an antibiotic gradient. By the way, if anybody who's ever watched The Expanse, a great example is in, I think, the second book or maybe the second season of the show. It's in either both. Great series. Praxitike Ming is one of my favorite characters ever. But he's a botanist, and they're going after this creature, and the botanist realizes that the creature is literally hunting based on a nutrient gradient. It's making its decisions based on a nutrient gradient. Where is the most powerful or the most concentrated source of my nutrient? And then he helps, all kinds of stuff out with that. But so it's a great show. You should totally watch that. But the mycelium, if we hit a nutrient gradient that is much more difficult to eat, and it keeps getting more difficult, then the cell line, the literal cell line that has the genetics capable for turning off and on the enzymatic pathways makes it easier to eat, basically. And as it hits that, it's able to divide. So there is some thought that if there is genetic variability in the leading edge, where it's packing all those nuclei, that you're getting the most genetic variability in this section, the leading edge. I don't know that that's actually true. There are some things about that make sense, and there are some things that don't make sense, right? In that, how big is that sector where there's actually any genetic variability? How do we know we're getting any here? And the answer is you don't know. You just have to work with what you can work with. I find that mycology, microbiology, I worked in the fishery industry for a couple of years, and one of the things that you develop when you're working really closely with fish in large numbers, you can, if you got a tank, you can see right through and you can see the fish. That's great. When you've got ponds, lakes, pools, these kinds of things, it's a lot harder to observe the animal that you're actually growing. Same thing with microbiology. You start to have to develop this almost intuitive sense or other outliers that you're working with here. So, my biggest thing would be practice that intuition, practice making decisions based on that intuition, and then observe when you're right and you're wrong. And you can see, maybe get an intuitive grasp on what we're talking about here in a more technical sense and how that actually applies to the cultivation side of things. I feel like I did not do a good job with that at all. Didn't say much talk about how some researchers used an enoki extract to trigger fruiting in other types of mushrooms. I think that makes a lot of sense, because not just enoki, but it makes sense that you'll be able to pull hormones from one species that produces a lot of them and add it to another to trigger different things. So I think that makes perfect sense. Also, enoki is an incredibly powerful, it's a powerhouse mushroom. It is very, very, very full of all kinds of unique molecules. Dutch oven can test the relationship. You believe it? Oh, yeah, I can. I know people have almost gotten divorced over that stuff. Mitosis is where we talked earlier. Cold winter morning is a good excuse to heat up the oven, for sure. You got a cold morning tomorrow? I know it's getting chilly tonight already. Like, I was not expecting it to. Fascinating. So rhizomorphic growth may be caused by a result of front-loading the mycelium edge with an extra nuclei. I don't know that for sure. I don't know that that's the exact cause, but it makes logical sense to me. So 2.5 hours. I'm going to call it. I'm going to go ahead and call it, guys. You have been great this evening. Thank you so much for hanging out, making it fun. Do not forget about the Liquid Culture Deep Dive. Anyone who's already taken my basics course, please remember that you have a code that you can use for 30% off. And all you got to do is ask me for that. We have 15 spaces right now. I do expect that to start filling up fairly quickly towards the time. And we're going to get into a lot of cool stuff on that. So The next, I'm expecting to announce January's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, probably January 10th will be our next mushroom basics, cultivation basics class. I think it's January 10th, but I'll get that out for sure by the end of this weekend at the very latest. And then for anyone waiting on the liquid culture deep dive information, that should be going out Friday or maybe Monday, depending on how much family stuff I am obligated to do. So real quick, let's just go through the comments that have built up here. For sure, practice makes your breeding intuition better. I've heard many plant breeders say they just get a feeling. I'm being convinced my son was good. Yeah, I mean, it's. I feel the same way. It's absolutely like that. The intuition, you just start feeling, these little tugs. What's the description of the Holy Spirit is the gentle nudging or something like that, or like I can't remember exactly. Soft, still voice or something like that. Like it's kind of like that, where it's like a very subtle kind of thing, but I'll just get a pull and I'm like, I want to cross those two. And sometimes I couldn't even tell you why. So thank you very much, Steve. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I appreciate you guys. Absolutely, Jeff. Thank you. Thanks for all the intriguing thoughts. I got 5 new windows opened up I need to read. You're going to have to share that with me, Ed. Because if somehow you got interested in something, then likely I need to get more interested in it myself. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Have a happy Thanksgiving. We didn't even talk about Thanksgiving. Oh shoot! I'm making a I picked a huge, let's say a mid-sized box of shiitake today out of the grow room, and they're all danko form, so the tortoise shells with the cracked caps that look like tortoise shells. And I'm making cream of mushroom soup tomorrow. I should have done it for a casserole, though. Dang it. I'll have to do it for a different family dinner. But shiitake, I could dry the shiitake, too, for better flavor. Anyways, y'all, have a great night. It's fun and culture.
Yeah, they said the creek was quiet until I showed up with the flash. Now it bubbles like a cauldron full of chaos and sass. Flip the switch, boom, spores light the night. I'm that mad mycologist, cooking dynamite. Roll up in the lab coat, looking like a villain. Petri dish, pimping every strain I'm killing. Got that mycelium feeling spreading in the ceiling. Dr. Solary and Sermon got the culture kneeling. Moon pearl shimmer while the flask gets hot. MCM, baby, we the cream of the crop. I mix oats and sawdust, make that block ignite. Fun guy fireworks, call it Friday night. I'm a spore bomb lighting up the scene. Grow bags popping like a fever dream. Got jars on the table, culture's clean. Dr. Silurian cooking up that green. Ooh. Mossy Creek, that's dynamite. Ooh. Spreading spores till the stars take flight. Ooh. Call the lab, tell them brace for blight. Cause I'm blowing up the world with mycelial might.